Hi, I'm Doug Bryant, designer of Dunkirk, France 1940, brought to you by Worthington Publishing. In this How to Play video, I'm going to walk you through the game turn procedures you will use when you play Dunkirk. I'm going to begin this How to Play video by starting with unit setup. The units in Dunkirk, France 1940 are organized into formations. For the Allies, there are several formations: the French First Army, Second Army, 7th Army, 9th Army, and the Reserve Army. The Allies also have at their disposal the BEF, the British Expeditionary Force. The independent countries of Belgium and Netherlands are their own formations, and then the Germans have two formations: Army Group B, which is in the north, and Army Group A, which is more towards the southern part of the area of operations. During setup, players will set up their blocks no more than 2 per hex, that's the stacking limit, 2 blocks per hex per side. They will set them up in designated setup areas. And I'm just going to point some things out to you here. For example, the BEF, as you can see here, has 4 blocks in its formation. They may set up anywhere in these 3 areas, and they're noted on the board, BEF setup area. So they may set up anywhere in those areas, and then of course the blocks are stood up facing the player. We'll assume the Allied player would be to this side, the German player to this side. The blocks are set up, with care being taken as to where the headquarters block is located, so that all units of its formation are in command range at the start of play. As you can see here with the Belgians, I've put some of the Belgians already standing face up. For the minor countries, every city is occupied. Every city, in the case of the Belgians, the fort, Evenemel, they are occupied. The same with the Dutch, Rotterdam, Nijmegen, and so on. These cities are occupied by a block. The French also have units throughout that are in various setup areas. The Germans have 2 setup areas, Group B and Group A. I'm just going to zoom in here for you onto, I'll do this slowly, back up a bit, and slowly zoom in here for the 9th Army Group so you can see a close-up of a setup area. The 9th Army for the French consists of these blocks here, and their setup area is anywhere in these 3 hexes. So obviously they could put 2 and 2 and leave 1 blank. Maybe not the best choice, but possible. They could go 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and so on. Here's the headquarters. I'm going to place the headquarters here in a centralized location. Put this strong infantry unit here facing the Ardennes because it's an area the Germans might come through. In fact, I'm going to put 2 there and really try and stymie the Germans, and I'm going to put this mechanized unit here. And the 9th Army Group then, the 4 blocks of the 9th Army, are set up in their 3 setup locations. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the rest of the board, and then I'm going to walk you through how a turn goes. Here we have the board set up for play. The Allied formations are all in their respective setup areas. The Belgians and the Dutch in theirs, 1 block per city within their countries. And the Germans, Army Group B and Army Group A, are also set up. Now at the start of play, players will be dealt cards from their card deck. And I'm just going to show a sample of some cards here. Here might be an Allied card they might get in their deck. Here's a sample of a German card they will receive. And each turn, players will receive additional cards at the start of each game turn. Cards don't have to be used during the game turn. They can be stored and kept for later use at different points in the game. But the cards will be dealt out. The units will be set up. What will happen to start play is that the German player will select, and I have a blow up here of one of 6 German strategy cards. Now these strategy cards identify main objectives for the German player to achieve, bonus objectives for the German player to achieve, and some conditions under which the Allied player might negatively impact the Germans' ability to obtain victory. Victory in Dunkirk, France 1940 is by victory points, and the German player has to accrue a certain number of victory points in order to win the game. Now the strategy card the German player selects will determine what those victory conditions are. Some of the cards detail the capture of geographic objectives, put priority on that. Others put priority on the destruction of units and formations of the Allies. Others do a mix of both. So the German player has 6 to choose from, and again, the objectives are spelled out, how many victory points the German player will receive should he or she achieve those objectives, some bonus objectives which can add some victory points to the German total, and then also some conditions under which certain Allied actions might deduct points from the German total at the end of the game. So the first thing after the units are set up is that the German player will select a strategy card, and then that strategy card is going to drive the German objectives and direction and focus during the game, because it's very important that the German player stay focused very closely upon what those objectives are and attempt to achieve them. Once the German player has selected the strategy card, the units are set up, the opaque container, or as I call it, the bag — I use a bag, you could use a coffee cup, what have you — will be seeded with the command chits of the formations that are in the bag at the start. Now, as you may have seen in another video that I've produced, each formation in Dunkirk, France 1940 has a command chit. For example, here is the command chit for the French First Army, and the French First Army is actually back in this area here. So those blocks become active when this command chit is drawn out of the opaque container, because the bag or coffee cup, what have you, is seeded with various command chits. The wrinkle is that not all of the command chits go in the bag right away on the first turn. The game turn chart will tell you which command chits go into the bag and which do not. And in that way, the sequencing of the command chits, in terms of when they're in play, when they're not, adjusts some of the tempo and rhythm of the campaign. But it also creates a bit of uncertainty, because you never know exactly who's going to be going next, what formation is going to go next. At the start of the game, I will tell you that the Allies have in the bag, or in the opaque container, the BEF command chit, the French First Army, and the French Ninth Army. The BEF, the First, and the Ninth, these formations. The Second, the Seventh, the Reserve, they're not in play, nor at the start of the game are the Belgians or Dutch. They all go into the bag starting on turn 2. Now, the Germans have actually double command chits for their formations. They have 2 command chits for Formation A and 2 command chits for Formation B that will go in the bag at the start. And for the first 2 turns of the game, these German formations will receive 2 activations, 2 opportunities to move and fight for the first 2 turns of the game. And the reason I've done that is that reflects the initial surprise the Germans achieved, their initial very aggressive operational tempo, and it's a way of mimicking or duplicating that capacity that the Germans had in real life. Beginning on turn 3, however, 2 of these extra command chits, 1 each, will be removed from play, and the Germans will be just like everyone else and have 1 command chit in, as their operational pace tends to slow a bit now that we're in the mid-game and towards the end game. So at the start of the game, we're going to seed the bag here with the BEF, the First, and the Ninth for the Allies, and we're going to put an A and B in there for the Germans. Now, one other thing for the Germans here on the start of the game. They get to choose which formation they want to start the game with. It's an advantage that the Germans are given here because they were the aggressor, they were the attacker, and they dictated the initial pace of the campaign. So the German player has a decision to make at the start of every game. After having picked that strategy card, the German player will select, I'm either going to start with Formation A or I'm going to start with Formation B. And let's just say that the German player is going to start with Formation A. So B will go in the bag. So right now in the bag there's another Formation A chit, there's 2 B chits, and there are, of course, the 3 Allied chits on the bag. I'll give them a good shake here as we go along. So Formation A will be the active formation. We're at turn 1, and the German player is ready to begin play. So let's walk through a turn here for the Germans. Formation A is the active formation. The first thing the German player is going to do is reveal to the opponent the location of the German headquarters. And the headquarters block I've placed here in the middle of Army Group A's setup. Now, the reason that is done is to verify for your opponent the command range of your headquarters, and that way you can prove in that way that the blocks of that formation are in command or are not. In this case, at the start, obviously the headquarters has been placed in such a way that all of the German blocks in that formation are in command. Now, let's just assume that the Germans are pursuing, for this example, an objective where they're going to try and drive down the middle with Formation A, and B is going to be kind of supporting that drive. Let's suppose their strategy card they picked is one that focuses on objectives here in the middle of the board. So, the formation is active, and at that point the German player is going to engage in movement, and if there is any, combat. Infantry blocks move up to 2 hexes, or rather I should say have 2 movement points available to them per turn, which in most cases is going to be 2 hexes, but some terrain may modify that. Mechanized and armor are going to have 3 movement points. Infantry 2, mechanized and armor 3. So let's move some blocks here for you, and I'm going to step to the side of the board, and I'm going to show you just here for camera. This is an infantry block, and I'm going to move through Luxembourg and into the Ardennes Forest. The way I've designed the game, the forest does not have a movement penalty for either player, because in real life the Germans were able to move through the Ardennes unexpectedly quickly. They found routes through, and I try and reflect that in the game. So I've completed most of the movement for German Army Group A. The infantry have moved up to 2 movement points worth of movement. The mech and armor, where possible, have used 3 movement points, although as you can see right now things are a bit congested for the Germans right at the start. In this case, the mech and armor are back here waiting to advance a little further ahead, but they're a little slowed right now with the infantry leading the way and ahead of them through the forest. However, I want to draw your attention to this area here to show you an example of combat. Here's the headquarters for Army Group A. Hasn't moved yet, but it's just showing you where it started for its command range. These 2 blocks here, both are infantry, a 4-step and a 3-step, are in command range. They're going to move and engage this Belgian block here in the city. And they're going to move 1 and move 2. Now, you'll note they crossed a river. Crossing a river hexside in Dunkirk, France, 1940 requires 2 movement points from a block. So obviously, with an infantry unit that only has 2 movement points, for it to cross an unbridged river hexside would require both, in other words, all of its movement points. In this case, however, we have a bridge, and the blocks can advance across that bridge and attack into the city, although there'll be some defensive benefits for the Belgian defender because we're going across a bridge also in a city as well. So let's move those up and engage. We move into the hex to engage in battle, not adjacent. You actually move into the hex with the opponent's blocks. And again, a reminder, the stacking limit is 2 blocks per side per hex. Let's finish our movement here. We have a German armored unit which is going to advance up to here, and I'm actually going to put the headquarters, advance it up to here, because even these blocks, the German command range of 3, all the blocks of the formation will be in command for its next activation. I've zoomed in on this hex to illustrate to you how a battle occurs in Dunkirk, France, 1940. When a battle is created by one force moving its blocks into a hex containing blocks of the opposing force, a battle will occur. Now, the active player, the player whose formation is active, will select the order in which battles are conducted, assuming there are multiple battles going on that particular activation. In this case, we have 1 battle, and what will happen is the players will reveal the blocks to one another so that they can see what's there. At that point, players will have the option to play a battle card if they have one in their hand. In this case, I'm just going to show this example. The Germans have an airstrike here, 3 dice at 4 or less. In city or forest, not as effective, 3 dice at 2 or less. The Allies have cards as well, with artillery strikes, airstrikes, other sorts of battle events. However, the Allies may not, and this is important to remember, they may not play cards in battles in which only Dutch and or Belgian forces are involved. There has to be some kind of French or British block in the battle for the Allies to play a battle card in that particular battle. So let's roll this out here. We have a case where the Germans are attacking with these 2 blocks against this Belgian defender in a city, and the Germans have crossed a bridge. The first determination then in the battle sequence is either side going to play a battle card? Now, obviously, in the case of the Allies, it's not feasible or possible because there's no French or British forces involved in this particular battle. It's only the Belgians. The Germans here have to ask, okay, do I want to use this resource of an airstrike card in this battle? Each card, though, in Dunkirk, France, 1940, has 2 possible uses. It might be a battle, it might be a reinforcement, or it might be an event. In this case, this event is press the attack, enabling the German player to buy a second round of battle free of charge. In this case, this is a pretty valuable card. The Germans are looking and saying, I think we can take those 2 steps of the Belgians without deploying a battle card. We're not going to play a battle card. And of course, as I mentioned, the Allied player is not able to play a battle card. So, at this point, the battle will occur. The terrain effects chart will spell out for you the sequence as to who fires first, second, and third, and so on in the battle. But basically what happens is, of the unit classes, the defender will fire first in all cases. So defending infantry will fire before attacking infantry, defending armor before attacking armor, and so on. Some of the sequences are different. In clear terrain, for example, armor will fire before mech or infantry. However, in a city situation, infantry will fire before mech or armor, so the infantry get a little advantage here. So here we have a situation where our sequence, because of the city, allows the infantry to fire first. We also have a bridge attack going on here, which in this case is going to enable the defender, the Belgians, to roll 1 additional die at their battle rating. So the Belgians in this case will roll, normally they would roll 2 steps, 2 dice, at 3 or less to get a hit on a 10-sided die. Because this is a bridge attack, they will roll a third dice. It's an advantage for them. And again, the infantry are going first here in this battle because infantry fire first in cities, whereas armor fire first in clear terrain. So we're going to roll this 3 dice. I'm going to roll this off camera here for you for the Belgians. And their results are a 5, a 6, and a 0. And a 0 in Dunkirk, France, 1940 is the same as a 10. So the Belgians unfortunately whiffed on that one. What we have then is the German player will roll the units for the dice for his units, and he will have 4 at 3 with this unit, and 3 at 3 here, a total of 7. So let's roll those out, and we see a 1 and a 3 right off the bat, and I'll just put those in camera range for you. So 2 hits are scored, the Belgian block is eliminated, and the Germans have captured that Belgian city.